Hey there, Black Sheep. Welcome back to the channel. And this week's episode of This Bites, the series in which we analyze the Watchtower literature and propaganda and highlight how it implements the bite model. If you're unfamiliar with the bite model, it's the go-to method used to identify extreme control groups and cults, and the methods that they use to coerce, recruit, and maintain control of their members. This week, at a Kingdom Hall near you, Jehovah's Witnesses will be discussing article number 17, entitled, Never Leave the Spiritual Paradise. Guys, this one is paragraph 1. There is a paradise on earth. Millions of people enjoy genuine peace and are determined never to leave spiritual paradise.
I tried to pray to Jehovah, but I just couldn't. I felt ashamed.
And I will say that's the worst day of my life.
Doors kept closing. I felt very tense. It made me feel very useless. Like, I can't even provide for my family.
My conscience really bothered me.
It crushed my whole family.
I would always cry. I cried every day.
As a little kid, I always wanted, one big happy family. Once we moved to New York for my treatment, I no longer had that big family bond anymore. What I was feeling back then in New York was just sadness. Never really peace.
They should say relative peace. Thought control. Require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth, adopting the group's map of reality as reality, instill black and white thinking, decide between good versus evil, organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. The article claims Jehovah's Witnesses have access to a spiritual paradise that others do not have. And because of this, they experience genuine peace. The footnote then defines this term, spiritual paradise. The term, spiritual paradise, describes the environment in which we worship Jehovah. Thought control. Use of loaded language and cliches, which constrict knowledge, stop critical thoughts, and reduce complexities into platitudinous buzzwords. Paragraph 2 continues with the black and white thinking, saying that Jehovah has created a serene environment in the midst of a world that Satan has turned into a hate-filled, wicked, and dangerous place, and that those inhabiting this paradise are able to thrive during these difficult last days. Emotional control. Instill fear, such as fear of thinking independently, the outside world, enemies, losing one's salvation. Paragraphs 3 and 4 bring up a scripture in Isaiah 51:11. The redeemed ones of Jehovah will return. They will come to Zion with a joyful cry. The article claims that this scripture is a prophecy with two fulfillments, although the actual Bible doesn't say anything about the scripture having a dual meaning. This is completely made up by Watchtower. Paragraph 4 says that the second fulfillment of that prophecy was in 1919, according to Jehovah's Witness lore. 1919 is apparently when the spiritual paradise started to take shape throughout the earth. The year 1919 derives from the Watchtower doctrine that Jesus began ruling in heaven in 1914. As regular viewers of the channel know, 1914 is a date incorrectly calculated based on the fall of Babylon. The Watchtower ignores history scholars and archaeological findings about the actual date and instead calculate from the year 607 BCE. Since the starting date of their calculations is incorrect, all the math done from that date is also incorrect. So 1919 is not, in fact, a fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy. If you want to look further into the history of Babylon's fall and a deep dive on how Watchtower has calculated to the date 1914, there will be links in the description below. One of a history infographic about Babylon, another to JwFacts.com, an amazing resource that cites all of its sources and excerpts, and that particular article is called How 1919 is Derived. I will not be debunking this for you. Do your research. A quick Google search, you'll find this date is wrong. Watchtower, however, insists on it. Information control, deception, deliberately withhold information, distort information to make it more acceptable, systematically lie to the cult member. Information control, minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information, including internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, media, critical information, former members. Subheading 1. Characteristics of those in spiritual paradise. Paragraph 5 says that Isaiah 65:13 draws a vivid contrast between what life is like for those inside the spiritual paradise and what life is like for those outside. This is othering Jehovah's Witnesses, us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. And it says that all people outside the spiritual paradise, aka the Jehovah's Witness religion, as dictated by the governing body, everyone outside of that is going hungry, going thirsty, and suffering shame. Their spiritual needs are not being satisfied. This simply is a deliberate lie. There are evangelical Christians, Buddhist monks, yogi gurus, even vegans who feel happy and spiritually satisfied, who aren't suffering shame because in their hearts and minds, they're living their best life. This is, again, deception. Deliberately withhold information, distort information to make it more acceptable, require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth, instill black and white thinking, decide between good versus evil, organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. There are some people who deconstructed from their former faiths and don't believe in an organized religion or inspired text, and have discovered a way of life that leaves them spiritually satisfied, with or without a deity, without a governing body. But the governing body don't want you to know that. You actually don't need them as the middle managers of your inner peace or salvation. Instead, they firmly reassert themselves between the Jehovah's Witnesses and their God. Paragraph 6, you see them doubling down, saying that Jehovah generously supplies his people with spiritual food. How does he do that? He does so through the Bible and our Bible-based publications, our website, as well as our meetings, assemblies, and conventions. Behavior control, instill dependency and obedience. Behavior control, major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals, and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. Instill fear, such as fear of thinking independently, the outside world, losing one's salvation, leaving or being shunned by the group, others' disapproval. According to this article, and according to the governing body, you can't be spiritually strong or close with your God without the governing body and their approved resources. Does that sound right to you? Paragraph 8 says that Jehovah's people have love and unity. It then quotes an unnamed but totally real Christian sister who says, "The first time I saw love in action was among Jehovah's Witnesses." This is by design. Jehovah's Witnesses are unknowingly taught to love bomb. Any newcomer to come to the Kingdom Hall will be approached by many or all of the members of the local congregation to greet them, introduce themselves, ask what they thought about the meeting, and invite them to come back, of course. Oftentimes, whichever Jehovah's Witness invited the newcomer, once they get a confirmation that they're actually going to show up, the Jehovah's Witness will text certain friends of theirs in the congregation to give them a heads up, to know to look for the newcomer and to greet them. Love bombing, although most Jehovah's Witnesses are doing so unknowingly, is an emotional manipulation tactic. Love bombing is an attempt to influence a person by demonstrations of attention and affection. It has also been described as psychological manipulation in order to create a feeling of unity within a group against a society perceived as hostile. Does that sound familiar? Link in the description to licensed professional counselor Kati Morton on 5 signs of love bombing. Paragraph 9 and 10. Those who choose to remain outside the spiritual paradise cry out because of the pain of heart and wail because of a broken spirit. It is soothing to our nerves to be at our Christian meetings. False. As discussed earlier, this is not true. There are countless ways to feel relaxed and calm, happy and content outside of being a Jehovah's Witness. But Watchtower can't have you knowing that. Because emotional control, phobia indoctrination, inculcating irrational fears about leaving the group or questioning the leader's authority. No happiness or fulfillment possible outside the group. Terrible consequences if you leave. Shunning of those who leave. Never a legitimate reason to leave. Those who leave are weak, undisciplined, unspiritual, worldly, brainwashed by family or counselor, or seduced by money, sex, or rock and roll. Those who remain in the spiritual paradise will see the complete fulfillment of God's promise of the new heavens and new earth. Paragraph 11 calls all belief systems outside the Watchtower Bible Tract Society spiritually parched organizations, and claims that Jehovah's Witnesses are excited about the blessings they enjoy because of being in the truth. Calling their religion the truth is thought control, use of loaded language and cliches which constrict knowledge, stop critical thoughts, and reduce complexities into platitudinous buzzwords. If their religion is the truth, everything else is false. Labeling alternative belief systems as illegitimate, evil, or not useful. Paragraphs 13 through 15 are just straight up gaslighting. It is the Watchtower Bible Tract Society fully denying its issues with CSA and domestic violence. Paragraph 13 says that many who formerly had beastly personalities have made remarkable changes in their life and tamed their former undesirable traits. It says that many were immoral and violent until they began attending meetings, and that the spiritual paradise is already a reality, and that they can find relative peace and enjoy a safe oasis in a violent world. And it is because the governing body refuses to make changes to their policies on the 2-witness rule and mandatory reporting that this is false. They do not have a safe oasis. Hence the Pennsylvania 14 announced in 2023 at this press conference.
All of the defendants and all of the victims come from the same religious organization, the Jehovah Witnesses. Some of these defendants even use their faith communities to prey upon the victims, and others had to look no further than their own families.
Jehovah's Witnesses are also encouraged to stay in difficult marriages by the governing body to tolerate a measure of domestic violence.
This world's media is very skillful at presenting something bad as good. For example, in a movie, a female character might be portrayed as having a husband who is abusive. You like the woman, and you want her to find happiness. Then a handsome man starts working in her office, and he's so nice to her. There's an attraction between them, and the budding romance is presented as something good. Soft background music makes it hard to consider her course to be bad. It's easy to keep watching and hope she leaves her marriage mate and runs off with her workmate. And usually that's what happens. So easily we can forget that Jehovah and Jesus hate adultery and unscriptural divorce.
None of this is safe, calm, peaceful, or happy. But the Watchtower here is telling you that it is. And no one will ever love you like they do. This is more emotional manipulation. Like I said, this is textbook gaslighting. The definition of gaslighting. Gaslighting is a colloquialism loosely defined as manipulating someone into questioning their own perception of reality. It's about making you question yourself, including your memory, your trust in yourself, your sanity, what you're feeling, and even your own identity. Any Jehovah's Witness that's in the audience this weekend who is dealing with abuse at home will be left with conflicting realities. The pretty picture that Watchtower paints here of an oasis from a violent world, and the one that they face behind closed doors. Emotional control. Promote feelings of guilt or unworthiness, such as identity guilt, you are not living up to your potential, your family is deficient, your affiliations are unwise, your thoughts, feelings, actions are irrelevant or selfish, social guilt. Thought control. Instill new map of reality. On this page, there's a discussion box. They left and came back. In this discussion box, they relay the maybe real stories of Jehovah's Witnesses who were emotionally blackmailed and coerced into conforming to Watchtower's rules. The first example of June said that, I know that I cannot isolate myself and go it alone. June's comment highlights the dependency and obedience required by this religion. And then ironically, the next two are of disfellowshipped individuals who were purposefully isolated by this loving organization. The others were disfellowshipped and became sad and depressed because they were quote-unquote removed from the congregation, cut off from their entire social circle, friends and family, believing Jehovah's Witnesses won't take a call or even respond to a text from a disfellowshipped person, forcing the disfellowshipped person to be suddenly and totally isolated in some cases, even leaving them jobless or homeless. And this could be for something potentially benign or harmless, like dating a non-believer or smoking medical marijuana. Behavior control. Dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. Unethical use of confession. Withholding forgiveness or absolution. Subheading 2. How to attract others to the spiritual paradise. The answer in paragraphs 16 through 18 are love bombing and promoting an air or illusion of unity, and never rocking the boat. Paragraph 18 says, we see our Christian brothers and sisters as Jehovah sees them, focusing on their positive qualities and not on their imperfections. We can resolve any differences between us in a spirit of love. Resolve any difference, even if that Christian brother or sister is your abuser.
See, whether it's between marriage mates, those of us working together here at Bethel, bodies of elders, publishers in the congregation, what's the lesson for us? Well, the lesson is that when there seems to be a lack of peace, when there seems to be tension or arguing, the first person we should look at is ourselves.
Thought control. Encourage only good and proper thoughts. Emotional control. Make the person feel that problems are always their own fault, never the leader's or the group's fault. This is one of Dr. Robert J. Lifton's 8 criteria for thought reform, specifically doctrine over person. Here's a quick explanation of it by cult expert Rick Allen Ross.
Over person. And that is basically everything around you must be cataloged according to the group. Your own feelings, your thoughts, your emotions must be cataloged according to the doctrine of the group.
I counted the use of 6 of the thought reform criteria being used in this article. Full video is linked in the description below. Let me know in the comments if you also spotted them. Last subheading, subheading 3. Stay inside the spiritual paradise. Our last paragraph wraps us up with some nice and familiar emotional control. Anyone who wants to be refreshed, content, calm, and safe must come into the spiritual paradise and never leave it. Beware, though, because Satan is trying his best to lure us away from it. Emotional control. Instill fear, such as fear of thinking independently, the outside world, enemies, losing one's salvation, leaving or being shunned by the group, others' disapproval. And that brings us to the end of the article. So let's tally up the score. We have 3 for behavior control, 4 for information control, 6 for thought control, and 6 for emotional control. That gives us a total of 3,466, a number almost equal to the number of faiths or belief systems where you can find people who feel relaxed and calm, grateful and excited, peaceful and safe, healthy and refreshed, happy and content. Happiness is achievable without the governing body. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Please give the video a like and comment. It helps this information get out to more people, and I enjoy hearing from you. I always do my best to reply. Continue thinking freely, Black Sheep.